where your journey is. And around the innovation came from the Shelt when we asked them, and they asked for us to give them improved SLG. We went away and we had a look at different SLG and how we could improve what we were doing. And then a big part of it was we had a behavioural safety award, which recognised the teams, what the teams were doing. You know, we tend to focus on things that go wrong. This event was what was being going right. You know, 90% of the time we get it right, and we focus on the 10% we get it wrong. So we recognise the teams out there that were impressing the customer, keeping people safe, and still delivering at the same time. And it was proven that it could be done. And it was a time to really celebrate them. And the feedback was fantastic. It really was. So the Step Up event booklet, we also produced an A5 booklet for them to take away, and there's a couple of snapshots from it. We have my contribution, which is their opportunity to feed back to us. There was cards on the day, there was a website, you know, and they really got engaged. They really did get engaged, and we come up with some really good ideas that we've taken away and looked at and implemented. Again, there's Balfour Beatty's golden rules, but it was good. It was a takeaway, and when you went round the vehicles months afterwards, they were still there. They were still on the dashboard. They were still in the team packs. So, you know, they weren't just dismissed and thrown away, which was really good to see. Again, we went through what good looks like. So that was part of what the sites looked like on the Step Up event. We had barrier bracings. We had new barrier bins to put, you know, there's nothing worse than going out to a site and seeing litter. You know, that was produced by the teams from the lunches. They've had McDonald's, they've had a can of Coke. And we introduced litter bins to make sure that people could focus on putting the litter in the bins. We introduced fittings, magnums on site that were portable, that can move from site to site. And it just really reduced the slip, trips and falls. It improved the customer experience. There was no litter spilling out from the barriers onto the public footpath. And it really, we had a real good vision of what good looks like to the customer. You know, when you were walking onto sites, we knew what it was looking like before, but with the innovation, the barriers were still standing up. We had the local authorities were impressed. They were getting less reports of barriers down, less slips, trips and falls. MOPs were reduced massively. There's a couple of slides on the innovations we used. Bottom right is the barrier bins we spoke about. You know, we had weighted signage, we had the bracings that kept the barriers upright. We also had the magnums, which aren't on those photographs, unfortunately. And then we came up with new signage. As you said, these fitted inside the barrier systems. You can see the 4 holes in each sign. They were clipped to the barriers, and they faced inwards. The middle one faced inwards, and the one on the right faced inwards. So while the guys were digging down, they could see, as in their vision, their line of vision, what their plan was about using the Cat and Jenny, about digging safely, about using air lancers. It was in their peripheral vision all the time. We had, you know, the minimum standards of PPE, and we had Balfour Beatty's golden rules as a reminder. Good visual techniques on site. There's a slide. I won't go into the slide, but that's how much data we went into on the Cat for data management. To have a look at that. Again, plan your dig your plan. That was all around using videos, using air lancers, digging to the side, always planning beforehand, giving the team briefs. And the most important thing, if they were unsure, they would stop and ask. And these are the things we went through. And this is the thing that really improved as we went through it. We just kept focusing on, have you got a plan? Are you sticking to your plan? Have you got the right tools and equipment? As a result, these are the key success factors that came out of it. So we reduced our LV electric utility damages down, an improvement of almost 30%. Total utilities down by 32%. Our MOP incidents were reduced by over 57%. Lost time injury rates. We've seen an improvement across everything by just purely focusing on the collaboration between the client, the supply chain, and Balfour Beatty. That's the end of my slides.
Okay, Tom. Thanks ever so much for an insightful presentation. We've got some questions for you. First one's from me. You know, in terms of this initiative and How many days have you seen an improvement without having an accident to employees, customers and the public?
We went, we had, I think it was over 2 million hours, man hours, without any incidents on site in terms of the workforce on site. And we had almost the same amount of time as MOPs. Now, we had a number of, shall we say, alleged MOP incidents where people were claiming. Again, when we went out and done the investigation, it was fantastic to be able to see that we could actually prove that they weren't incidents, because part of our investigation was the teams took start and end of day photographs. So to start a shift, they'd take a photograph, and at the end of the shift before they left site, they'd take a photograph. So that information was used to prove that we had improved. It wasn't the alleged, we're actually just alleged. So we had, I'd say, it's hard to put a figure on because I haven't got the figure in front of me, but we had the same amount of time without injuries to the team as members of the public.
Thanks for that, Tom. And second one from me is, you talk about discussing injuries and accidents with teams. Do you encourage them to do that themselves without a manager involved, or how does that go about?
So we also introduced an app, which I didn't put on the slide, about observations, and it was to encourage the teams to report hazards, near misses, and positive observations. And it was a really interesting challenge, because the teams see reporting a hazard or a near miss as an own goal. They're saying, if I report something on my site, it's like I haven't done something correct. Whereas we were encouraging them to say, no, you tell us what you've seen, what you've found, and what you've done about it. And once we got that message across, it was brilliant. They were reporting anything and everything. It was even things that they'd done themselves, like left tools outside of the barriers, they were reporting it, and they were saying, I've seen it, I've done something about it. And it took a while to get that message across, but eventually the more hazards and near misses we reported, and it was brilliant that we could show that data at Shelt. As the graph went up for hazards and near misses, the incidents on site went down.
Yeah.
So the sites got safer, but it was brilliant to be able to produce that data and get that message across to say, you're self-managing your site. We're not here to manage your site. You manage your own site. Yeah. And when you put them graphs, it was quite powerful. Just put the two slides together.
Thank you ever so much, Tom. According to the chat, I've got no more questions for you, Tom. So well done indeed, and thanks for an insightful presentation.
Thank you.
We now move to Paul O'Brien from Gas Networks Ireland Design Safety Initiative. So, Paul, without further ado, the floor is yours, my friend.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Can you see and hear me okay?
Well, we can't see anything yet.
I will just want to share screen.
There we go. We can see that now, Paul. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I had some technical difficulty with the slides earlier. So if they do freeze, you might just leave me know, and maybe Chris or Carol can drive. But look, we'll hope for the best. So I'm, as you mentioned, Paul O'Brien, Design Services Manager in Gas Networks Ireland, and today I'm going to talk about our Design Safety Initiative, safeguarding people and the environment. So just before I go into the detail, just for some context, I joined GNI in 2015 in the role of Design Safety Coordinator. Now, this role was a new role at the time, and it was specifically created to support the organisation in discharging statutory duties as project supervisor for the design process and principal designer. And these are defined as per the respective construction regulations in Ireland and the UK. I was subsequently appointed to the role of Design Services Manager in 2018, where I'm now responsible for a team of 15, where we provide a wide range of technical support services across the life cycle of our assets, while also retaining responsibility for design safety. So it's now my colleague Linda O'Shea, who sits in the design services team, leads the design safety effort, and as an individual contributor provides cross-functional support to our colleagues in design, planning, construction and operations across our capital portfolio of works, which is approximately between 80 and 100 million per annum. So I've just moved on to the first slide there. Can you just confirm that that it's moved along, Chris?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So just a little bit of context about the gas network. So GNI transports gas to over 700 customers through a network of steel and polyethylene pipes. We manage transmission and distribution assets in Ireland, Northern Ireland, Scotland and the Isle of Man. So from a construction design safety perspective, we must be familiar with the legislative requirements and the duty holder responsibilities across multiple jurisdictions. So just moving on to the next slide, for the purposes of this presentation, the focus is going to be on construction design safety. The construction regulations define responsibilities based on particular roles. I think everybody would be familiar with the roles. You can see the graphic on the right-hand side there. So GNI could be fulfilling one or all of these roles at a given time. Today, we're focusing on managing safety during the design process. So GNI would regularly undertake the role of PSDP for a wide variety of construction works in Ireland, and may also fulfil the role of PD for construction works in Northern Ireland and Scotland. So our approach to compliance aims to be agnostic in terms of the legislation or the jurisdiction. It's very much a principles-based approach. So I could use the term PSDP or PD interchangeably, but I'll default to PD here. And within GNI, PD responsibilities would be transferred between departments as a project progresses throughout its life cycle. So within design safety, we would work across functional boundaries to provide end-to-end support and ensure a cohesive approach to managing safety during the design process from concept to completion. So just moving on to the next slide. So just working from left to right, this outlines our journey and some of the key milestones at a very high level. So the first thing was to identify the need. So an internal audit would have identified the need for the design safety coordinator role, which was created to address a number of opportunities for improvement that were identified at the time. Once the role was established, the next step was to measure baseline maturity. This was achieved through a series of structured interviews with key stakeholders, number of project and system audits, detailed gap analysis against the legislation in Ireland and the UK. So a number of gaps would have been identified at the time. So we went about defining, the target end state and what good would look like. And we developed the strategy across a number of key pillars, people, process and practice, with the end goal of ultimately improving overall performance in terms of fulfilling or administering PD responsibilities. In parallel, you can see at the bottom there, we immediately looked to run a 2-day IOSH accredited training. This was to address some basic misconceptions, specifically related to the role of PD or PSDP, and we began to raise the organisational maturity level. So once the basic training was complete, we launched the Design Safety Initiative. And central to this initiative was a modular 9-task framework for managing safety during the design process. The overall aim was to provide a clear, simple, consistent approach which may meet or exceed statutory obligations, while also championing a design, safe by design philosophy. So I suppose one of the challenges was, as an individual contributor, the success of the initiative was wholly dependent on cross-functional cooperation. So to ensure this cooperation was secured, we created a dedicated competency profile for managing safety during the design process. This identified over 60 roles within the organisation that would require some level of formal training. This training was made mandatory, and there was 4 levels of competence varying from awareness to advanced, depending on the requirements of the role. So just moving on there to step 6. So in conjunction with this, In conjunction with the technical competency framework, we would have developed a detailed guidance manual to explain the 9-task framework, which I'll introduce in the next slide. But importantly, I suppose the manual would look to take into account existing internal governance, existing contractual arrangements, and organisational factors that would be required to be taken into account to ensure that the response to, I suppose, discharging our PD duties would be proportionate to the type of work that was being carried out. In addition, to make it as easy as possible to access the training and to access the documents, we developed an e-learning module titled Managing Safety During the Design Process. So this modular approach allowed us to, I suppose, focus on specific tasks that may require more detail as well. So in addition to, I suppose, the high-level awareness guideline, we also created a number of bite-sized modules. And in conjunction with this, while implementing the strategic initiatives, we continue to provide project-specific support and conduct targeted auditing following the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle in an effort to continuously improve organisational maturity. So just moving on to the next slide. The guidance. So the guidance series, a bespoke guidance series was developed to support anyone that was required to discharge PD responsibilities on a project under their control. You can see on the screen there, there's 3 main documents. The high-level guideline is an infographic on the left-hand side there. That's the 9 key tasks that equate to what we defined as recommended practice for managing safety during the design process. These are the practical steps required to ensure PD requirements are fulfilled. The core guideline, it's a detailed manual that expands on the 9 tasks and provides additional organisational and legislative context. And the short pocket book provides tailored guidance for specific activities. So this was very much designed with the end user in mind. The pocketbook style provides practical advice in a user-friendly format with a section for note-taking, and I suppose it was aimed to be taken to the field. So just moving on to the next slide. Yeah. So this is effectively the framework for managing safety during the design process. It can be applied universally to projects that involve construction work. It can be applied across the different jurisdictions as well. So it's based on 9 key tasks which provide competent personnel with the basic building blocks to achieve effective risk management throughout the PD lifecycle. So from conception to completion and beyond. So the approach to completing each task on a given project is designed to be proportionate to the nature, scale, and design complexity. So each task that you can see on the screen there is supplemented with the tools, templates, and process enhancements to execute the role in practice and also to deliver that proportionate response. So I won't go through each task, I'm just conscious of the time, but you can see it on the slide. Just in terms of, I suppose, for additional context, each task, as I said, is supported with the tools, the templates, etc., that are required to deliver the tasks in practice. So just taking the first task as an example, assess the works. So we've developed a dedicated form that assists the competent teams in conducting a robust, systematic compliance assessment. And this form is embedded in the project prerequisites. So a project can't progress beyond gate 1 without completing what we call construction regulation assessment form. And it provides a formal record that the statutory duties have been taken into consideration. I suppose at this stage, it's worth noting that this task is essentially a client task, but within the context of GNI, our delivery teams must wear multiple hats, and the people that plan the work will be expected to assess the works to determine if the necessary appointments are required. And if those appointments are required, they would need to make those appointments. So this approach has been designed with the end user in mind, as well as legislative compliance. So I've just moved on to the next slide. So I suppose in conjunction with the guidance, we launched an e-learning series. So The Design Safety eLearning series makes it as easy as possible for engineers to access the training. This means CPD hours can be accumulated from home by engineers across GNI. This has been particularly beneficial during COVID, where face-to-face training was restricted. And we've also onboarded a number of new engineers remotely. So this series is continuously evolving. And I suppose the modular nature of the framework allows us to continue to create and distribute bite-sized modules focusing on specific tasks as required. So a couple of the bite-sized modules that we've already produced include a module on particular risk management, design change management, and we're currently working on a temporary works management module. So just moving on. So we've also developed an interactive toolkit, which helps engineers put the recommended practice into action. So by bringing the guidance and the templates together in this interactive document, it allows users to hyperlink directly to the specific task templates while simultaneously reading the guidance. So just some of the key achievements and benefits to date. So the Design Safety Initiative has delivered a number of key achievements in terms of improving practice, process and performance. So we've got over 60 engineers trained in the business, improving the organisational maturity. We've got over 500 workshop hours engaging staff, embedding the Safe by Design philosophy. We've got the technical competency profile, which ensures our organisational competence is appropriate. We've got the guidance series that I mentioned, the standardized tools and templates help deliver compliance in practice. We've got the interactive toolkit, which helps users put that experience and put that practice into action. We've got systemized control points in our project delivery processes, whereby there's a number of controls in place where projects can't progress past certain gates without ensuring that the design safety controls are in place. We've got the bespoke e-learning series that promotes continuous professional development. And we've also looked to optimize a number of processes. So we don't just, I suppose, come in and do the gap analysis or the audits and highlight the issues. We also work with the process owners and the project teams to optimize processes. And we recently launched the design deviation process. So the last slide here is, I suppose, the focus of this initiative has always been on protecting people and the environment. The key message has been, if you're planning new works or modifying works on the gas network, you should be considering through good planning and design how you can avoid or mitigate risk at the earliest stage in the project to protect workers during construction, maintenance, end use and decommissioning. So we've had a number of integrated audits which confirm that the design safety tools and techniques are being used in practice and they're having positive impacts on projects. So just last month, GNI achieved the major health and safety milestone of 1 million hours worked without a lost time staff incident. So I suppose there's a lot of contributory factors to achieve these milestones, and I think our focus on design safety is just one of the things that helps I suppose our continually improving safety record. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Paul, for a very informative presentation. And first question from me: what key lessons have you learned, and how will they be incorporated into future plans?
I think there was a lot of lessons learned early on in the process. In particular, I think there was an assumption that the design and principal design responsibilities would have ended at the end of the design stage, let's say once the design was issued over to the contractor. That obviously isn't the case. So I think one of the immediate things that we did was to ensure that when we were the designer and responsible for PSDP, or where we outsourced the responsibility, that there was an allowance there for the competent person to follow a project right through to the end, to engage with the PSCS or the principal contractor, to ensure that temporary work being coordinated, to ensure any design deviations were being coordinated, and to ensure that the safety file was being collated, and working with I suppose the guys on the ground to ensure that the correct information was coming back in the right format and all that good stuff.
Thank you for a comprehensive answer, Paul. And then what a remarkable achievement would go in the 1 million hours without a lost time safety incident. Well done.
Thank you.
If there's no more questions, or there is, the 1 million accident-free hours, is it based on how many workers and which span of time?
The span of time was over the last 12 months, and it is based on hours worked. So I think that answers the question. Hours worked in terms of, I suppose, worked on the ground.
Okay, thank you for that. In that case, a big thank you to Paul for your presentation. We move on to the last presentation, which is from Wales and the West. So the last presentation, not least, is Wales and the West Demanding Safety Always, and the presentation is by Mark Benton, who is the Operations, Health, Safety and Environmental Senior Manager at Wales and the West Utilities. Mark, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much. I appreciate it. First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to be able to share this presentation with you, to be shortlisted for the category of the Safety Award for Wales and West Utilities is a huge achievement. So hopefully you'll be able to share with me now the way that we actually operate health and safety within WWU. It's a flavour of what we're about when it comes to health and safety. So if I share the presentation, hopefully you'll be able to tell me that you can see it.
Yeah, we can see that. Thanks, Mark.
Excellent. Okay. So a bit about us. I'm not going to dwell on this because it's not about what we do, it's about how we do it. But we operate the gas network in Wales and the southwest of England. We invest heavily in that gas network for the purpose of ensuring our customers receive a safe and reliable gas supply. And of course, we're trusted to deliver outstanding levels of gas safety, reliability and service to the communities that rely upon us. It's a vital service and one that we're extremely proud to deliver. You can see there, hopefully from the photographs within that slide, we operate across many pressure regimes and we operate a lot of different assets varying in size and complexity. So to underpin that, to have a foundation of demanding safety always, irrespective of what part of the business you're in, is clearly important to us. And people understand that from day one. Demanding safety always is very much the main priority for Wales and West Utilities. It's one of 5 priorities that we operate to, but that's underpinned by certain values. For example, one of those values is we bring energy. It was mentioned earlier on around fatigue, for example. Within Wales and West Utilities, we're very much about looking after the person as a whole entity. So it's not just about their health, their safety, it's very much about their well-being. We also have to realise that we operate within a gas network. The responsibility to manage the integrity of that gas network is hugely important. So looking at human factors, looking at investing time and efforts in making sure our people understand the importance and the value of the work that they do and the fact that they need to demand safety always of themselves in every circumstance is obviously huge. When you're operating within a gas network, clearly if employees fail in some way, if it's down to, let's say, fatigue, that we've not managed that, then we've put not only themselves at risk or the employee at risk, we put our gas network and ultimately our customers at risk. So fatigue is certainly one of those elements that we're expanding upon now. And although this presentation isn't about fatigue alone, it clearly shows that we are looking at the whole person, not just the usual kind of health and safety elements that you would expect. But we have a goal, and that goal is looking after our colleagues, of course, making sure they remain healthy, those colleagues operate our network safely, ensuring no harm or injury to themselves or indeed the general public. It's as clear and as simple as that. There's nothing difficult about the message that we give. It's very much about not just standing still, it's about raising the bar, continually striving to improve health and safety within the business. That, of course, has to be underpinned by good leadership, and we're fortunate in that we've got Graham Edwards, our CEO, and this is a direct comment from him about when we started our business as Wales and West Utilities from our inception in 2005. One thing that hasn't changed is our commitment to health and safety, both for the operations and obviously the people we serve. However, as I said, we don't stand still. We continually challenge ourselves. This is very much about continual improvement. It's about a journey that we're on. And we've come a long way already, but we're not naive enough to think that we're exactly where we need to be. And Andrew Hopkins, our Director of Assets and HSE Director. Again, excellence in safety performance at the organisational level requires excellence at the individual level. And that's where we put our efforts. We're putting our efforts into the people, into our colleagues, the people that work around us, the people that will protect us, the people that will look after each of us, and with the people that will look after our gas network ultimately. Leadership at the top is hugely important, of course it is, but health and safety at every level. It's very much about how we do things, but it's also, it's about what we do, but it's very much about how we do it. So it's about choosing to do the right thing always. And this is very much the safety culture that we've developed, we've grown, we've nurtured to the point of which we are now. I touched on safety culture. We have an induction for all new starters within the business. Of course, they have their departmental induction, of course they would, but we put everybody through a corporate induction so that everybody gets that same message, that understanding that safety is clearly a priority for us. It's hugely important, so that when they do come into their day job, that they understand how we operate, and they are soon embedded and they can soon embrace that culture that we operate to. Because as is clearly shown there, the behaviour of the group can influence the behaviour of that individual. So if we've got the vast majority of the people operating to a good safety culture, demanding safety of themselves always and of their colleagues, then clearly new starters will pick up on that immediately and follow that safe behaviour. So the tagline, if you like, of demanding safety always, it's more than just demanding safety always of themselves. We're doing it to protect the health, safety and the well-being of our people. Of course we are, but it's also about the integrity of the gas network and therefore the safety of the people that we serve. And that's a huge responsibility and one that we don't take lightly. We do this by nurturing a culture of trust. People are empowered to make the right choices, demanding of themselves and their colleagues to always apply that training and implement the controls that are in place for their safety. When we talk about a just culture, we're talking about accountability, and that's accountability at every level. That's managers, supervisors, team leaders, and there's clearly a depiction there that shows you how that works. Safety culture, demanding safety always, throughout the journey of a colleague within Wales and West Utilities, that message is consistent. And as Sarah Hopkins, our People and Engagement Director, mentions within her quote here, our approach to safety, demanding safety always, does underpin every stage of that colleague journey. We do take that opportunity at the induction day, and we continue that message throughout their employment, from the start of their employment through to their development, their growth, their training, and all the way through to obviously when they leave our business. So, and I think where Sarah mentioned safety is in our DNA, it absolutely is. This isn't an initiative, it's not a campaign. This is very much about how we do things within Wales and West Utilities. What's important, no matter how good the message is, it's about how well we get that message across. and we have a designated comms team that is able to wrap up the message. Clearly, I know the message that I want to portray to the rest of my colleagues. The comms people wrap it up in messages which are clearly understood, which land very well with our employees. And that ranges from a series of videos to various booklets that we have that underpin that message. Now, clearly, we've all felt the pain of COVID-19 and the lockdown that came with it, and all the controls that we've all had to implement as a result of that. But within Wales and West Utilities, because we already had that demanding safety always culture, embedding the new procedures around the protection of our workforce and, of course, members of the public with regards to COVID became quite easy to absorb because of the way we operate. And, of course, our comms team were able to get those messages out very clearly and very quickly to the workforce. We also recognise as a network operator that we've got a responsibility to share the message of safety across not just our own employees and our own colleagues, but also across our the communities that we work within. So it's really important to us that we put that message out ourselves personally, and of course work with partners across our network to achieve that same message. For instance, we have ambassadors that go to schools to put across the importance around carbon monoxide awareness. And we are very proud of the fact that actually one young lady, JD Lee, actually won the Pride of Britain Award for the fact that she basically saved the life of her family, in that the week before she'd been to one of our presentations at her school. She understood what carbon monoxide could do, and she could see what was happening to her younger brother at the time. And she actually phoned the gas emergency number, which she knew, again, because of that piece that we'd done in her school. And she was able to actually quite literally save the life of a younger brother because of that. And as I said, I think we played a small part in that, and we're very proud that we did. Talking about recognition and reward, again, really important that not only do we're thankful that we've got colleagues out there that take on this message and take on this mantra of demanding safety always, but we like to reward and recognise them for that as well. So if somebody goes that extra mile, if somebody is exemplary in the way they operate and the way they look after themselves and their colleagues, again, we recognise that. And there's just 3 examples there of how indeed we do that. As a company, we've been recognised, and I'm not here to kind of blow the trumpet of Wales and West Utilities as such, but clearly we do believe that we're recognised as leaders within the industry. We were the first gas network to achieve ISO 45001, the new health and safety management standard. And of course, that's the framework, again, upon which it kind of gels very well with our demanding safety always mantra. We were Company of the Year in 2018 with IGEM. We don't go out seeking awards. We don't go out collecting awards as such. We're very specific about the organisations that we want to work with. Clearly, IGEM being seen amongst our peers as a leader is clearly important. Company of the Year in 2018 was a huge achievement for us. Working with the Health and Safety Executive, again, we've got a great relationship that we've built up over many, many years. We talked again about fatigue earlier on. That's one of the areas that we're working with the HSE on now. We believe we're leading, kind of blazing a trail on that with regards to how we manage fatigue amongst our workforce, because again, it brings us in line with managing the well-being of our people, but also demanding safety always of themselves to manage a safe network, which is hugely important. To go outside of our industry, we challenge ourselves again. We've achieved the oil and gas sector winner for 2019 and 20 with ROSPA. And of course, because it's an internationally recognised award scheme, we're able to kind of benchmark ourselves against other industries as well. So again, hugely important for us to be able to do that. Finally, just to kind of pull this all together, demanding safety always, we recognise it as part of everybody's full-time job. We're not perfect, we're not exactly where we need to be, but we're well on the road to achieve excellence. Road to zero, we call it the road to zero because we don't want to have health and safety accidents. I don't want to put a target upon how many member of the public injuries is acceptable for us to injure. I don't want to put a target against how many lost time injuries is acceptable for us and kind of recognise if we get below that. It's all about achievement of zero injury, zero harm. And the way we do that is by investing in our people and demanding safety of themselves for the benefit of the public and the gas network that we operate. That's it from me. Thank you again for the opportunity to share with you how we operate within Wales and West Utilities, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Well, the first question is from me, Mark. If the top team were on site, what demonstrable actions will I see them from a safety aspect?
It's and you will see them out on site, first of all. That's the first thing to say. We target our senior management team with inspections, achieving an inspection every month, going out to visit the teams on site, walking the walk, talking the talk, wearing the PPE that's required. They attend the site. They're like anybody else who visits a site. It's very much about following the rules that are to be applied and recognising that that team leader on site is the guy that calls the shots. And just because we may be more senior within the organisation doesn't mean to say we don't follow the same rules.
No, that's very good. Thank you for the answer. Mark, I'm pleased to say that there's no more other questions in the chat for you, so it just leaves me to thank all our speakers for their engaging and insightful presentations, and thank you to our sponsor, the Gas Industry Safety Group. And I will tell you more about the Gas Industry Safety Group because we've redone our strategy on the 18th of May, but it just leaves me to finally go to IGEM and EUA teams for the promotion and delivery of today's webinar. And thank you all for joining us on this webinar. And the final thing from me is best wishes to Balfour, Beatty, Gas Networks Ireland and Wales and the West Utilities, and hope you get the right decision on the 18th of May. Anything from IGEM?
No, thank you very much for hosting, Chris, and thanks again to all of our speakers.
Yeah, well, I think it's gone extremely well and you put over your cases in a very exemplar way. So a big thank you from me, and it's midweek, so enjoy the rest of your weeks and we look forward to the awards on the 18th of May. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Bye.